My name is Natalie Whitmore. I'm 35 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I understood my marriage. Not in the fairy tale sense, not the sweeping gestures, surprise vacations, or carefully curated social media posts. I never believed love needed an audience. I believed in the quiet kind of marriage, the kind that grows steady roots beneath the surface, the kind that people stop questioning once enough years stack up behind it, the kind that doesn't explode or collapse loudly. It just erodes. Slowly, invisibly, one grain at a time. I had been with Daniel for 8 years, married for 5. We met the way most grown-up relationships do, through mutual friends at a housewarming party where neither of us planned to stay long. I remember thinking he seemed kind, reserved, thoughtful, not flashy, not trying too hard. One conversation turned into a second drink. The second drink turned into exchanged numbers. Within a year, we were living together. 2 years later, we were married. It felt organic, earned, real. Daniel came from money, not the kind that announces itself with logos and champagne, the quiet, old money kind, trust funds set up before adulthood, summer homes with no mortgages, parents who talked about investments the way other people talked about groceries. Money, to them, wasn't a goal, it was an assumption. I came from a solid middle-class background. I worked my way through college. I built a career step by step. I learned how to budget, save, plan. I knew what things cost. I knew what things were worth. I wasn't struggling, but I wasn't insulated from reality either. And from the beginning, Daniel's mother never liked me. From the very first meeting, she treated me like a temporary inconvenience, polite, yes, but distant, evaluative, as if she were watching closely, waiting for me to fail some invisible test she'd never explained. At our wedding, she proved she wasn't even trying to hide it. During her toast, she smiled thinly and said, "Well, Daniel chose love over security. Let's hope that works out." People laughed, soft, uncomfortable laughs, the kind people make when they don't know where to put their eyes. I laughed too. I shouldn't have. For years, Daniel defended me, or at least, I thought he did. He brushed off his mother's comments, told me not to take her seriously, said she was just old-fashioned, stuck in her ways. And I believed him. But about 6 months ago, something shifted. At first, it was subtle. He started spending more time with his family. Weekly dinners became twice a week, then 3. He'd come home quieter, distracted, like his body was there, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. When I asked what was wrong, he said he was tired, stressed, overworked. Then came the comments. Small, almost harmless on their own. My mom mentioned my cousin just married a corporate attorney. My dad was talking about how financial security really matters long-term. Have you ever thought about what our future looks like financially? I reassured him. We were fine. We had savings, a comfortable apartment, 2 cars, no debt, no emergencies looming on the horizon. But reassurance wasn't what he was looking for. 2 months ago, he became critical of everything. My job, my choices, the pace of our life. He started comparing me to his friends' wives, women who didn't work, women who came from better families, women whose lives looked easier. It felt like death by 1,000 cuts. And every time I tried to talk about it, he told me I was imagining things, that everything was fine, that I was being paranoid. 3 weeks ago, he told me we needed to have dinner at his parents' house. "There's something important we need to discuss," he said. I asked what it was about. "We'll talk there." That was when the feeling settled into my stomach, heavy, persistent, undeniable. We arrived at 6 p.m. on Saturday. His father opened the door, nodded once, and stepped aside without greeting me. His mother was already seated at the dining table with Daniel's younger sister, Camille, and her husband. "Sit," she said. Not a greeting, a command. I sat down. Daniel sat beside me, but he didn't look at me. That's when I knew. She folded her hands neatly on the table. "We need to discuss your marriage." I looked at Daniel. What is she talking about? He stared at his plate. "I've been talking to them," he said quietly. "About us." "About what?" "About how this isn't the life I thought I'd have." The air felt punched out of my chest. His mother leaned forward. You have a comfortable life, she said, but my son deserves better than comfortable. I turned to Daniel. Is this what you think? He hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any argument. Then his mother said the sentence that changed everything. If you leave her, I'll make sure you never struggle again. She listed it calmly, like items on a receipt: a condo, a trust, introductions to appropriate women. Daniel looked at me. And then he nodded. That was the moment I realized I wasn't losing a marriage. I was watching it being sold. The nod didn't come with drama, no shouting, no slammed fists, no cinematic moment where someone stands up and flips a table. It was worse than that. It was quiet. A single dip of his chin, like he was agreeing to upgrade a phone plan. For a moment, my brain refused to accept what my eyes had just seen. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to blink and say, "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" Waiting for him to reach for my hand under the table the way he used to when his mother got sharp. But his fingers stayed in his lap. His eyes stayed on his plate. And his mother, as if she'd just closed a deal, exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. You're serious? My voice came out thinner than I expected. Daniel finally looked up. I think it's for the best, he said. For the best, I repeated, like maybe saying it back would make it sound ridiculous to him. His mother didn't let him struggle. It isn't personal, Natalie, she said, the way people say it isn't personal right before they destroy your life. You're a decent woman, but decent isn't enough in this family. In this family. That phrase hit harder than the offer. Because it wasn't about love, it wasn't even about Daniel and me. It was about whether I belonged in a world whose rules I'd never agreed to play by. I turned to Daniel. Is this what you want? Your mother dictating our marriage? He met my eyes then, and the look in them wasn't anger. It was calculation. She has a point, he said. I laughed once, a short, broken sound that surprised even me. We're partners, I said. We built a life together. He leaned back like he was already exhausted by the conversation. You built a middle-class life, he said. I came from more than that. Something inside me tilted. You never cared before. His mouth tightened. Maybe I was naive, he said. Maybe I thought love was enough. His mother smiled like she'd just been proven right. And now, Daniel continued, I think I need more. That was the moment everything inside me went still. Not numb. Not calm. Just clear. His mother clasped her hands together. Which is why, she said, I'm making you an offer, Daniel. And I knew, with terrifying certainty, that whatever I walked out of that house with, it wouldn't be a marriage. It would be freedom. He kept staring at the table, at his hands, turning them slightly, flexing his fingers, like he'd just noticed they were there, like they belonged to someone else. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. She's right. The words landed softly, but they hit harder than anything else that night. Daniel's mother froze mid-breath. For a split second, the mask slipped, not anger, not superiority, but pure shock, because this wasn't part of her script. This wasn't the obedient silence she expected. Richard swallowed. I could see his throat work, the way it does when someone forces a truth past years of restraint. We've been stable, he said slowly, but we haven't been happy. Happy. The word hovered in the air like a forbidden language. Daniel's mother turned toward him sharply. Her eyes flashed, not just with anger, but with something brittle beneath it, fear, because once a man names his unhappiness, he can't pretend anymore. I turned to Daniel. Tell me the truth, I said quietly, before your mother started talking to you, before she started pointing out everything I wasn't, were you unhappy? Daniel's mouth tightened, his eyes flicked, just once, to his mother, a reflex, a habit. Then back to me. He didn't answer. And somehow, that silence told me everything I needed to know. I pushed my chair back and stood. The movement felt strange, unnaturally calm, like stepping out of a room that had been slowly filling with gas while everyone pretended it smelled fine. I'm not going to fight for someone who won't fight for us, I said. Daniel looked up, panic flashing across his face. Natalie, Wait. I cut him off, my voice still steady. If you want a divorce, fine. I'll sign whatever you put in front of me. His mother's lips curved into a tight, satisfied smile. Smart choice, she said. I looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time that evening, I smiled back, not politely, not nervously, but knowingly. Here's the thing, I said. In 5 years, Daniel, you'll be exactly like your father, sitting in a beautiful house with someone you don't love, telling yourself it's fine because it looks good from the outside. Daniel's face flushed red. And you, I continued, turning to his mother, will have succeeded in making your son as miserable as you are. She stood so abruptly her chair scraped against the floor. Get out. I didn't flinch. I already am, I said. And I walked out. The cold night air hit my skin like a slap. My hands shook as I unlocked my car, but my mind felt eerily clear, not peaceful, just no longer confused. I drove home, packed a bag, left behind furniture, framed photos, half-finished plans, because suddenly, I understood the real horror. It wasn't losing Daniel. It was staying long enough to become Richard. That night, I slept on a friend's couch, and for the first time in months, my chest didn't feel tight, my stomach didn't churn. Because the worst part wasn't the offer. It was the nod. You can't unnod. The morning after I left, I woke up disoriented. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The couch felt too short. There was no sound of Daniel's phone buzzing beside the bed, no quiet routine unfolding next to mine. Then it all came rushing back. The dinner. The offer. The nod. I waited for the collapse, for the sobbing, the regret, the urge to call him and ask how 8 years could vanish in one evening. But it didn't come. What I felt instead was stillness. Not peace, not yet, but the absence of denial. Around noon, my phone rang. Camille. I stared at her name for a long moment before answering. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said softly, but I need to. Okay, I said, talk. She hesitated. What you said last night, she continued, about my parents, you were right. I closed my eyes. They've been miserable my whole life, she said, separate bedrooms, separate vacations, I just never named it. And my mom's been doing the same thing to me, she added, questioning my marriage, planting doubts. She took a breath. I told Nate everything. We talked for hours. That's good, I said, and meant it. There's more, she said. After you left, I stayed. I talked to my dad. My chest tightened. He cried, she said. I've never seen that. He told me about the woman he loved before my mom, about the pressure, about living someone else's life for almost 30 years. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because my mother controls all of us, she said, and I'm done pretending it's normal. Then she said it. My dad is leaving her. The word divorce echoed in my head, heavy, familiar. He said what you asked him snapped something in him. Camille added, better late than never. I didn't celebrate. This wasn't victory. It was fallout. Everything moved fast after that. Richard moved out, filed for divorce. Daniel's mother hired lawyers who thrived on destruction. But Richard didn't waver. Daniel texted me. At first, logistics, then regret. I can't sleep. I think I made a mistake. I didn't answer, not to punish him, but because hope hurts more than silence. We met once, at a coffee shop. He looked hollow. I love you, he said. I don't want to be like my parents. Then you shouldn't have chosen their blueprint, I said. He asked for another chance. And I realized something shocking. I didn't want one. I don't trust you, I said, and I don't want to spend my life wondering when someone will convince you I'm not enough again. We divorced quietly. I moved into a small apartment, mine. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand. And here's what I learned. Love isn't enough if only one person is fighting. Money doesn't protect you from misery. Family interference destroys marriages when you allow it. And walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do. Daniel's mother lost everything she controlled. Richard found peace. Daniel stayed. The divorce will be final next month. Daniel still texts. I don't reply. Because you can't unnod. I'm 35, starting over. And for the first time in months, I sleep through the night. No anxiety. No measuring myself against expectations that were never mine. Just quiet. Just peace.